I had never reached baseline between trips, so this trip just felt like the last one continuing where it left off. My body began pulling apart again, only this time in a rotating circular motion, as if the universe was inside of a big tumble dryer. My vision wasn't spinning, but my sense of gravity was spinning, like I could feel a strong force pulling me in a circle. As I tried to understand how that felt, I slowly began to see, my eyes were open the whole time, the room around me wind up completely onto big spindles. It was then that I realized I was actually in a universe creating factory, but it wasn't creating the room I was in. It was creating my experience of the room. What was winding wasn't the room, but instead just my vision of it. Like literally my visual qualia was unwinding into view. I quickly began to realize that the factory wasn't creating the universe. It was just creating my consciousness, like a movie set being rolled into place. I immediately became aware of little creatures slash men slash elves behind me, who I was never able to see, working inside this factory, controlling all of the reality spindles. They were standing on scaffolding of some sort, raised platforms overseeing the work happening in this massive metaverse that was unwinding my perceptions. At this point, as my world continued to unwind and I was in this factory, I realized I was breaking through. I remember snapping out of it at one point and suddenly seeing the actual room I was in around me and thinking, holy fuck, I am tripping so hard. I had totally forgotten I was just in my bedroom, but instead thought I was basically taking a tour of this consciousness factory. I quickly fell back into Salvia land, and this is when my ego death occurred. As I watched the room around me unwind once again, everything in my vision was unwinding and going dark. The unwinding was coinciding with my eyes slowly closing, and I realized that the light I see of the world around me is actually just strips of this unwinding fabric, and that if I want to see all of the fabric, if I want to see what all of the fabric looked like when it's stripped away, I had to give up all of my vision. This entailed me closing my eyes in order to hand over the last of my visual qualia, so to speak. That's when I became surprised, because as my eyes closed and the last of my vision rolled up, the rest of me rolled up with it. My memories, my thoughts, my feelings, who I am, it all just rolled up off of me with my vision, like a washcloth being pulled off my head. That's when I realized that I was one of the workers in the factory who had simply suffered from a temporary illusion, an illusion of life, the world, etc. Once that was unwound off me, I realized I was one of the little elves controlling everything. And what were those elves or little men? They were just naked points in space. I was nothing but a singularity floating in the center of a consciousness-making factory, along with all of the other singularities who were helping with its construction. I wasn't a person. I wasn't an elf. I wasn't anything. I was just a single point of observation. The euphoria that came with this realization was mind-numbingly powerful, and it carried me all the way back to the real world again, until the main part of the trip was over. As I regained all of my human attributes, I realized what I had experienced was full-on ego death, something I had been wanting to experience. Although I wouldn't describe it as a death of the ego, but instead more like a swift removal of the ego. Like my ego thoughts, memories, emotions, etc., was peeled away from me like the way a magician pulls away a handkerchief to reveal what's underneath. Only in this case, there was nothing underneath. When all of me was pulled away, there was nothing left but the pure act of observing. That trip also lasted about 25 minutes, and by the time it was done, I felt an incredible burden of understanding, knowledge, and information. I felt like I had seen everything I needed to see in Salvia Land, and everything that I could see. The famous, "If you get the message, hang up the phone" quote was ringing in my ears. While still feeling very strong effects of the salvia, but back in this universe, I hopped onto my computer and took down about 10 pages of notes describing every thought, feeling, and emotion I could recollect about the whole thing. I decided not to post those raw notes and just post this summary instead. Coming back from this experience, at first it felt like I had been gifted ancient, sacred secrets about the nature of reality and consciousness. Now it feels like a distant dream. Did all of this even happen? Or did I just take a nap and dream I did salvia? It feels so far away in my memory, yet while it was happening, it was 100% vivid, believable, and real. I hope you've enjoyed reading about this trip. I won't be going to visit Sally for a while, but this journey was one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced. Many people fear Salvia, but she can be an incredible tour guide of the mind-verse when treated with respect. Sally took my hand and showed me that reality is constructed in a huge factory run by little hidden creatures. While I was distracted by the beauty of that machine, she surprised me by showing me that I'm one of the creatures in that cosmic factory as well, who is merely suffering from the illusion that I'm a human living in the universe that we think we know. As I was coming to grips with that, she showed me that myself and all the other creatures running the machine are actually just singular primal points of observation, possessing no other actual attributes than the pure ability to know. Before I could process all of this, I was gently transformed back into my body and sent home again.